welcome. My name is Kelly Anderson, and this is Fanimated, an animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. I hope everyone is having a spooky October, and I want to thank the Fanimated crew over at patreon.com/Fanimated for voting for this week's episode topic. Brynn Berryhill is joining me to discuss the 1993 cult classic, The Nightmare Before Christmas. From the mind of Tim Burton, this Halloween tale hits all the right notes and was a technological wonder in stop-motion animation at the time. Spoiler warning for those who haven't seen The Nightmare Before Christmas, and if you're not afraid of Oogie Boogie, then let's get started and let's get animated. Hello, Brynn.
Hi, Kelly.
How are you?
I'm well. I just got done watching, Nightmare Before Christmas last night, so I couldn't be better. How about you?
I am here.
In your ears, she's here.
Yes, I'm here. And you know what? Showing up is half the battle. Not for that makes it sound like I don't want to be here. I totally.
No, but getting out of, to be honest, even if it's something fun, getting out of bed is really most of the work. I actually had a belly dance class this morning. It was on Zoom, and just logging into Zoom and getting appropriate attire on and such was most of the work. Once it started, I was totally into it, but I understand. So,
yeah, some days, it's okay. Just getting up and doing something is good. Yeah.
All you want to do is be a blanket slug.
Yes, exactly. And we are not blanket slugs today, though, because we have some very important
Speak for yourself.
stuff.
I have my blanket right here.
Actually, I have a blanket on, too. We're blanket slugs.
We are blanket slugs, actually. So,
yeah, because
I hope that you all are able to be blanket slugs as well.
Yeah, I hope you're all being a blanket
cozy,
slug, all cozy,
warm,
with your apple cider or your hot cocoa. And
if you live in the U.S. or the Northern Hemisphere.
right, and it's cold. If you're living somewhere where it's warm, well, aren't you great?
Yeah, it's October. What is it? When did we have our first snow? A few days ago. And it was as much snow in the last week as the blizzard of 1991 that happened on Halloween. Yeah. So already we've had enough snow to quantify a blizzard.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, winter is here now, folks. It's okay. It's okay.
It's fine.
It's fine. We'll make it through together, everybody.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We're here.
We're here.
So congratulations, everybody, for pushing play.
You've made it this far in 2020. I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of you.
Genuinely, I am proud of you for making it this far in 2020. Please understand.
Brynn and I are so proud of you. You keep showing up. You're amazing. Keep going. Get yourself some hot cider.
Yeah,
even if the only thing nice.
Even if the only thing that you can do today is be a blanket slug, you be a blanket slug, because it's 2020 and do something good for yourself,
Yes. Yeah. Do something good for yourself, go watch The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Good transition. I like that.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, the Patreons. Wow, my brain is working really well. The patrons over on patreon.com/Fanimated voted on this week's episode topic, which is The Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, which I will talk about Tim Burton's actual involvement in this movie later, which is very little. Yeah. But first and foremost, The Nightmare Before Christmas came out in 1993, and I remember watching it at some point when I was younger, and it terrified me. But what was your experience?
I remember the first time I saw a picture of Nightmare Before Christmas was on a Disney calendar at home for October. And my mom just glared. No, it was for March, actually. My mom glared at it and told me that I wasn't allowed to watch it. It wasn't until I was in supposed high school that I watched it by nefarious means. But it wasn't until about like high school time, and all my friends were like, "What? You haven't seen it?" And I loved it so much. And I have to tell you, when I put it, I loved it so much that when I put it on now, I started singing along.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know that my memory is as bad as it is, but it is. And so the fact that I could sing along to it means that I watched it a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's got some really good music to bop along to, for sure.
I love Danny Elfman. And I have some like conversation about how he made the music and such too, but we'll keep bopping along.
All right. Well, for those of you who don't know, the basic premise, story beats of The Nightmare Before Christmas, is basically you have this magical realm of all these different worlds where, you know, there's Christmas Town and Halloween Town and, you know, a place for Easter and Thanksgiving, all of the holidays. At least all of the American holidays.
All of the ones, even if we don't celebrate them anymore.
Yes. And in Halloween Town, they're celebrating their fantastic Halloween that they just had. And everyone is like witches and monsters.
Vampires.
And all of these creepy people. And they pride themselves on their scares and, you know, all of that. Yeah. And
most blood drained.
Yes. I love that. So funny. And in this town, Jack Skellington is a skeleton. And he is kind of prized as, you know,
the king.
The Pumpkin King. And he, not formally, not officially leads, but kind of is a leader of Halloween Town. And he is feeling a little down because, you know what, there's something missing in his life and he's not sure what that is. And he's getting a little sick of the same old Halloween thing every single year. And he comes across these doors to these other magical realms, and he falls into Christmas Town. And so he is totally infatuated with Christmas.
Kid in a candy store.
It's adorable. That's my favorite scene.
I actually have in my notes about that scene. Like, he's so joyful and childlike, and yet he's still, because he is based off of a spider, like, his movements are still so spider-like and creepy.
Yes.
And anybody who would see him in Christmas Town, even though he is, like, getting swept into the moment, still would see him as the creepiest thing in that entire town, even though he's filled with all of this joy. Right. And it's just so good.
So good. So good. And, of course, he gets the idea that he can make Christmas better. So they kidnap Santa Claus, and he and all the rest of the people of Halloween Town, you know, make toys that are scary and all these things.
They try to replicate it.
They try to replicate it, but he ends up, of course, you know, making Christmas terrible.
Terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah. And that kind of goes haywire, and then we'll get to the end later. But so that's kind of like the basic premise, is that he comes across Christmas like, what's this? As the song goes. And
it's so hard not to sing it right now.
Yeah.
It's
yes.
so hard. I'm trying.
You're doing great. You're doing great, Ben.
Thank you.
And so yeah, he's like trying to figure out what is Christmas, and can I do this too? I can make it better and all of that. And then finds out, of course, that, you know, maybe he didn't. So, what stuck out to you the most rewatching it this time?
Oh, okay, so the thing about Nightmare Before Christmas is that it feels so much like a fairy tale. And in how it is portrayed, in the way that it's animated, in the way that it's resolved. And I always just loved blissfully thinking that it's just this fairy tale feeling to it. But then my partner, James, said, well, it's kind of, yeah, he's kind of appropriating Christmas. And I went, oh no, you're right. Like I knew it, and it was in there, but it wasn't as hard hitting as when that light bulb went off of like Jack going to Christmastown and taking it back and like having all of his people try to make that and take it over is kind of like if a film director, a white cis film director, went to India and saw all of this amazing culture in India and went back and said, oh, well, I want to do a Bollywood movie, takes over a very high budget Bollywood movie, kicks out the original director who's from India, and then does it his way, thinking that he understands Bollywood and Indian culture.
And both that scenario and the movie will end in flames.
No, it ends in flames, and everybody's like, no. And it's only when Santa or our native to the culture comes and brings Christmas to Halloween Town do they really start understanding. Mm-hmm. And only Santa and somebody from Christmas Town can really help them understand.
That's such an interesting perspective, and one that I hadn't even really thought about. And it's so true. Like, I was watching it this time, like, kind of struggling with the fact of, like, you know, most animated films are, like, so, you know, think outside the box, be yourself, be unique, blah, blah, blah. And then this one is basically being, like, stay in your lane. But, but it's also that, like, yeah, he's, like, it was fascinated with Christmas, and instead of stopping to ask the native, you know, elves and the Santa, like, what is this about Christmas? That's so, you know, like, let's talk. It's more like, let me just take over and figure it out for myself.
Right. And it would have been different if Jack, it not as good, but like different if Jack had been like, hey guys, I heard about this Christmas thing. Let's celebrate it here. And then they would have this horrifying Christmas to themselves. Kind of like how America kind of does Cinco de Mayo. You know, or yeah, like St. Patrick's Day. It's not the real thing, but it's absolutely not as detrimental as when they start trying to, like, say, oh, well, this is how you need to do this.
Right, you're not telling other people how to celebrate their own cultural heritage.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, man, this is opening an interesting conversation, interesting, like, questions that I have. So, like, St. Patrick's Day is a good example, I think, of something that, to me, and I could totally be wrong in this, but when I think about that, my automatic reaction is that's not harmful. We're like celebrating it in a fun way for ourselves, but maybe that is harmful. Like, are we allowed to? Like, what's the, you know, it's so.
I think the harm comes in what it becomes, in what happens in the future. So, like, if a community got together and they're like, oh, I heard this story about St. Patrick and this is what they do in Ireland, and brought it back to like a small community, that would be one thing. But we've kind of made an entire satire on the Irish people being drunks. And St. Patrick's Day is about drinking. That's it. That's pretty much it. Like, let's be honest. Like, St. Right. Patrick's Day is about getting drunk. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with St. Patrick, right? And it has evolved into something completely different. And I think that that's disrespectful, right?
Yeah. Someone from Ireland, please write in and tell us about how we misappropriate your culture. Or
got it right. I mean, like, how do I know? But also... Yeah,
we don't know. That's what we're saying.
Right.
We don't know.
Right. And same with Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day has become and this is, you know, well known, but it's a corporate holiday. It has nothing to do with St. Valentine's. And, like, it's what you do with it. And so I think what makes this conversation interesting is that usually when we talk about appropriation, we're we kind of already have an angry face on or a frustrated face on because it is frustrating. Like, you know, people who have Halloween costumes that are Native Americans. That's super frustrating, and you should know better by now. But also, if you look at Nightmare Before Christmas, they do it in a really honest way. Jack is really joyful about this, and he really wants to celebrate Christmas and felt something really deep inside of him that resonated a lot.
He has good intentions, and he really wants to know, he wants to be a part of it. He's feeling that, yeah.
Yeah, and the way that they resolve and the way that it dissolves in front of him really is a good way to say, like, hey, maybe you should have done this a different way. Or even, I don't know, talk to the native people of that culture, like talk to the people of Christmastown at all.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a really friendly way and a friendly nudge and reminder of like, hey, so...
Right. We need to do this a better way. That's all, it's an interesting point, and now I'm like, yeah, it's very, at least from our eyes looking back at it, is a really good message. And if that had been, I feel like if they were to redo it maybe with that lens, like being able to provide an ending where Santa and the elves come over to Halloween Town and like bring the tradition with them and bring, you know, knowledge and sharing the custom, you know, because I think that's true in all of these examples, and is that you need to understand the cultural significance for that people group, and if they're willing to share it, and in what way are they willing to share it. So in respect to other themes and other like ideas, at least I feel like the creators were, you know, aiming towards, I was kind of thinking this time around, like, okay, so Jack does all of that and he fails. And he comes back, and like, what is the takeaway, you know? And like the with what I'm seeing in the film, what I'm left with is to say, oh, well, he was missing having like Sally in his life, or someone else there to share it with. And I think that might be the message they were trying to go for, but also I don't know how I feel about that. Thinking about the creator's true intentions for this narrative, you have Jack. He has a problem. You know, his problem he thinks is being solved by doing this Christmas stuff, and it ends up to not have fixed the issue at all. Like he fails. Protagonist rarely fails like this. And at the end, he's left, and they kind of make a little punctuation note with Sally being there. And so is it that they're saying that the thing he was missing was Sally, was someone to share his Halloweens with? And because it's either that, or it's, like I said earlier, the stay in your own lane, like be, you know, which I struggle with, because I feel like as a creative, like you want to be able to explore other avenues and other options. You don't want to stay in the same rut all the time. And it's such a different story because he fails, and also B, because usually there would be some sort of like, you know, be unique, be yourself. You have to use your own power that's in you specifically. And for this, it was like, no, what you are actually good at is being Halloweeny. And also, like, I kind of take fault with possibly the interpretation of, you know, you only do the thing you're good at, which I also take fault in. Like, if he wants to be part of Christmas, let him be part of Christmas, like, obviously in a different way, but like, you know what I mean? And also, I guess I'm not happy with any of these endings, because, okay, let's say that, oh, he was missing Sally. I have a lot of issues with the Sally Jack connection, because there isn't one. And then and then B, because if the point is to be like, I don't know, there should have been more connection there. Like, there should have been more than more about him being lonely or something. And I want to say too, this sounds like I'm totally bashing this movie. Just know it's me processing, and that's true of all of our episodes. I just want to be sure for people who are listening, like, we love this movie. We only talk on Fanimated. We only talk about movies we love, because I don't want to sit here and tell you that a movie is horrible. I'm going to be critical of a movie, but just know that every single movie, every single show we talk about, we love and adore, because we're fans of it. That's why we're Fanimated. I just want to make sure it's clear. We love The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is my thought process.
So my interpretation is that it's a midlife crisis. And that Jack has gotten stagnant, and he doesn't know where he's going because there isn't really a way up at that point. And he's blind to everything around him because everything's become dull. Besides the fact that the color palette is black, white, and black, gray, and orange. Right. And he goes out to... he gets a big head and says, well, I could do more. I can take over this, and I could do more, and really starts to, he has this self-confidence that, oh, I can take this over. It's good. Like, I will be even greater than I am right now. And, he fails. He fails miserably, like you said. And then he kind of he's a little hurt, gets dejected that it didn't work, but also that's a really important thing to know as well. Like, you're stepping into somebody else's territory, somebody else's job, somebody else's, like, right, and trying to take away what they're doing. And he's like, you know what? This is fine. I'm good at this. Like, this is, and kind of finds that, rekindles that light again. And I feel like when you get stuck somewhere and you go out and you have an adventure, or you try something else, you can come back and it is more refreshed. Because that's why people travel, right? Or that's why people take a vacation, so that they can go out, find something else, and then come back renewed and refreshed and appreciative of what you have. In terms of Sally, I think that, because I know that you were saying that they didn't really, like, explain a lot of their relationship together. And
yeah,
to be fair, they don't. Sally is very much the perfect woman that society expects us to be. And I remember talking to James about, like, even her willowy kind of form was a very 90s stereotypical, like, essence of beauty. I was a kid in the 90s, and having a boyish figure was what you wanted, right? And even though she's all marked up and whatever, it's all stylistic, but essentially her body is the same, is the idea of beauty in the mainstream. And her quiet demeanor, her, like, wanting to help, her wanting to like, help Jack and do everything that she can for Jack, is very much how society sees that women should be. Please understand, I love Jack and Sally. I love that fit at the end, where they just fit together, and that he sees everything that she's done for him, and that he, like, finally relaxes into belonging there and belonging together, because they fit physically and kind of, like, relationshiply so well, because she balances him. I don't know what he gives to her, but she balances him. And I think that it's very fairy tale-ish, but it's still worth saying, like, I couldn't be Sally if I tried.
Yeah. What?
But it's still such a beautiful little romance and a beautiful little love story. And so like Kelly said, I want you to understand that I love Jack and Sally for so many different reasons, but it is important to point out, like, yeah, that's kind of what we're expected to look like and act like and sound like,
Right. And I think it can go the two extremes sometimes of, like, a feminist story of not everyone is a She-Ra or not everyone is, Kipo, and some people are a Sally, and that we want to respect that too, because
totally.
all women are so different. And really, in this story, Sally is the one that fixes everything.
Yes, she is.
Sally, Jack comes in at the end to save them, but, Sally's the one who sees what's going on, and she tries to fix it so many times.
Yeah.
And she goes in and tries to get Santa back. So, and it's no one listening to her. Jack never listened. And yeah, I do think it's sweet that they end up together. I think it's definitely a good question still to ask, what is she getting out of it? But clearly, but clearly that's her goal and her, pining after Jack the whole time.
I love Sally so much, and I think that it's you're right. She fixes everything in the background, and this is all her doing that anything ends up okay.
Yeah.
And it's a really good question of what does she get out of it. But also, I could definitely see, and this is why it's so frustrating that movies end with the kiss instead of letting us see what they look like as a couple. Because I could absolutely see Sally going and living with Jack and being, and doing the sewing and doing the this and that. And then she hands him a pumpkin and says, I need that on the roof. And he is like, all right, here we go. And she might delegate him more, which is still emotional labor, to be fair. But I would see Jack as being a partner in his capacity as well. And
yeah, Jack is definitely that type of character.
It's just sad that we didn't get to see him do anything
to help her
at all for her.
And granted, I don't want to just make it seem like you have to know what you're getting out of a relationship.
No, of course not.
No, I mean, love is more than that. But
balance is important.
Balance is important. And yeah, no. I don't think Jack is the type to abuse the situation. And honestly, I think too, part of it is you have thought about Sally and Jack a lot more than I have, and so you have a lot more you love Sally so much, and I have not watched the movie as much as you, and so you already have all of those headcanons ready to go, which I think is great, and honestly probably a lot of other people do too, and people listening do as well. Email me your Nightmare Before Christmas headcanons at fanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, I feel that's valid too. And this is kind of going on a sidetrack of we've kind of talked about this before with Miraculous Ladybug, right? Where the content itself may not be the media itself might not be what we connect with, but it's the headcanons. It's what once a story is out in the world, regardless of its form, it becomes in some ways the property of its audience. And so and I don't say that in copyright terms or legal law or anything, but just in the way of it's free into the world of other people's minds. And for people who this is a cult classic, A Nightmare Before Christmas, and so a lot of people really resonate and have looked at it very, very deeply, just like you. And I love that. I mean, that's what I love about so many different fandoms and everything. We can make more out of what is given to us.
I hope so with Ladybug. I certainly hope
because Miraculous Ladybug has nothing to offer.
No, they give you a really solid base, and then you have to take it from there. You don't even have to watch any of the episodes besides one or two. Just take it from there and go. I guess for me, I haven't even thought about it much in a headcanon sort of way. It's more about tracking with it, because I love this movie and I think that it's beautiful and poetic.
And you're interpreting things different than I do. Yeah,
totally. I think it's more tracking personality types and kind of future visioning, like Garnet, a little bit. But yeah, it's sad that that they don't have evidence that Jack has done anything for Sally. However, I think that there is enough evidence in Jack's actions to assume, at least reasonably, that Jack will be a loving, doting partner.
I am nodding my head furiously. Yes. For those who can't see me.
Or hear the thump of the mic.
The thump as the bill of my hat hits my microphone.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I totally agree. Jack, there's enough circumstantial evidence that would points to, they're great for each other.
Yeah.
They're made for each other.
I think I always wish that I could be like Sally, but like, especially growing up, I'm like...
But also...
The people who are
not
like Sally are beautiful, beautiful people, and I wish I could be like you, and I just... No. I would be
Brynn.
like... I'd be like Jack trying to do Christmas is what Brynn would be like trying to do Sally.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's good.
I'll leave the Sallying to the Sallys.
Yes, the Sallys. Shout out to all those Sallys out there. Hi.
Yee.
So
Oogie Boogie is terrifying.
Oh yeah. I mean, I said that I was scared of this movie as a child. I'm still scared of this movie. This movie still creeps me out. So.
Oogie Boogie, like, and I think that's what this movie is so good. It is beautiful in so many different ways, and I think that they made such a rich world where you can be creeped out by Oogie Boogie while it's still being, like, so interwoven into the world. I always had the question of, did they ever have the backstory that Oogie Boogie was trying to take over for Jack? And I feel like that would be a very natural progression for Oogie Boogie trying to be the king of Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For
sure, because he has such beef with Jack.
Right, and he's not doing it right, and he is, messing it up there, right? So,
and Oogie Boogie would have made it even worse in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I also want to say that the thing that still scares me the most is just like my lawful good personality just hates that the children like kidnap Santa Claus. Like, honestly, that like scared the children scared me more probably as a kid than the Oogie Boogie, because I was just like, why are they doing this to Santa Claus?
The kids scare me as an adult. I know those kids. I've seen those kids. I've taught those kids. I know. Me and my chaotic good. I'm chaotic good. The kids scare me that they took him to Oogie Boogie. Like,
yeah.
It's not that they kidnapped him, whatever. It's more that they took him to Oogie Boogie, where it was basically a death sentence. That's what gets me.
Those kids terrify me so much.
They are a lot and really well done. Like, they gave them personalities, even though they basically were the same unit.
Right,
which is
impressive. They're all different. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's get into that crazy production life. I have a lot of notes, so we'll just get right into it.
Go for it.
So this movie, it's called Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. Let me just state right off the bat, Tim Burton was there for maybe 8 days of filming. Like, he did not make this movie. He created the story for this movie.
Story and character designs, right?
Yes, at least somewhat.
Yeah.
So Tim Burton worked for Disney in like the 80s, and he wrote this poem for The Nightmare Before Christmas. And so he had this idea, and he wanted to make it a short film or like a made-for-TV special or something. And everyone at Disney was like, that's too weird. And
they said that to Tim Burton? Can't imagine.
Well, before he got big. And then he goes and directs like Beetlejuice and Batman and whatnot. And later on, he got a deal with Disney to produce it, but nothing ever went through. Or like, even before that. So something happened where basically Disney still owned the rights to The Night Before Christmas, but they never actually gave him the green light. And so he goes back again to Disney and is like, for him, you know, I read over and over how much it meant to him, and I'm like, if it meant so much to you, why weren't you a part of filming? But regardless, he, you know, kept going back to it. He really, really wanted to make this thing happen. Disney retook the idea in 1990 because the execs at the time were riding on that Disney Renaissance success, and they wanted to prove that they could do more technically advanced things like this stop motion animation, and they want to like think outside the box and all that.
Well, they did.
They did, and so they have this. But then when it came time to actually, you know, release it, they went through, you know, their side studio. So like Disney isn't in, like, you know, the logos. What is it? It was released through Touchstone Pictures because they thought it was too dark and scary for kids, like their usual audience. So they didn't release it as Disney. They released it as Touchstone Pictures because they were still a little like, yeah, we want to be different. Oh, wait, not that. Right? Like,
we take it back.
We take it back.
Didn't they add Disney's Nightmare Before Christmas like years later?
They re-released it in like 2001 or something with 3D, which, by the way, makes it the first fully 3D stop motion animation film to be released. So there you go. But that's probably the when they did that in the early 2000s. Basically, Tim Burton worked on the story beats. You know, he worked with like some of the character design, stuff like that, but he didn't direct, partially because of his commitment to Batman Returns, and also because he specifically did not want to be a part of the painstakingly slow process of stop motion animation. I'm like, what? You mean the coolest process in animation history? Bye.
Right. I can understand, but still. To have your name on it. And I understand that, like, most of the directing actually happened before they got onto the animated, like, the claymation set. However,
a lot of things happened on set. So let me say, Caroline Thompson wrote the screenplay, but apparently very, very little of her written dialogue actually ended up in the movie because they were changing things so much, and she was so busy on other projects. It just seems like again and again these people are involved who just kind of are like, here's my little, I'll put my thing into it, and now I'm gonna leave. Bye, good luck.
Right, because it's this little pet project that they didn't expect to go well.
Right. Oh, for sure. And so Henry Selick, and I think I'm pronouncing that right? Right? Selick? Anyway, Henry Selick directed, and he, I mean, yes, credit goes to Tim Burton, but a huge amount of the credit goes to Henry Selick and the entire animation team that spent however many years, 3 years, working on this. So,
no kidding.
Oh my goodness. And Henry Selick says about Burton, quote, "It is as though he laid the egg and I sat on it and it hatched." He wasn't involved in a hands-on way, but his hand is in it. It was my job to make it look like a Tim Burton film, which is not so different from my own films, unquote.
Right.
It is depressing. It's like Henry Selick has his own voice, which, you know, is very Tim Burton-esque, but is also his.
Didn't he
he has to make it look like Tim Burton specifically.
Didn't he do Corpse Bride, which wasn't a Tim Burton film?
No.
Okay.
Henry Selick did James and the Giant Peach and Coraline. Corpse Bride actually was Tim Burton.
Tim Burton, okay.
So Tim Burton directed Corpse Bride and Frankenweenie, and Henry Selick did James and the Giant Peach and Coraline.
Which are very, I can understand, like, that very similar, not quite as heavy on the eyeliner, maybe, you could say, but they are, like, everybody and their mother was getting Coraline wrong. They would say, oh, it's a Tim Burton film, and I had to be like,
no, it's not.
Yeah, so, like, I could see that kind of, like, it would be very similar, but very frustrating not to get the recognition for that.
I know, absolutely. And so a little bit stop motion animation is just fascinating to me. Yeah, you definitely have to be patient for it for sure. But that's what's so fascinating is like how they make these puppets move.
Yeah.
And if we've talked about on the podcast Kubo and the Two Strings, you can listen to that episode. That, in my opinion, is the best Leica film so far in their repertoire. And Leica is the studio behind Coraline and Box Trolls and many others. Honestly, one of the best stop motion animation studios right now, currently. And it's a time consuming process. And they began filming in July 1991 for The Nightmare Before Christmas with over 120 workers and 20 sound stages for filming. There were 109,440 frames taken for the film. That is insane.
Oh, God.
And there were 227 puppets constructed. Jack Skellington himself had the puppets for him had around 400 different heads that they'd pop on and off him for all of his mouth movements and expressions.
And Sally had a mask.
Yes, so they wouldn't touch her hair as much. So they wouldn't get in the way of that.
Which makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Yeah, and nowadays, like, I'd say, like, looking at Kubo, for example, a lot of them have masks that they change interchangeably. Jack is a unique case because his character design is, I mean, he's got a head that's supposed to pop off anyway, so it's easy to just take his head on off.
And with Sally, it's okay if there's a seam because she's Sally. So you didn't need to think about those seams, whereas with Kubo, you'd need to think about the seams way more particularly.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I wonder, too, how much they go over it afterwards at all with, like, digital. Yeah, I wonder.
That would make sense.
You know, because they have to go back I don't know, actually. No, this is very fascinating. I wish I knew more about the process, really. Because even in Nightmare Before Christmas, you can tell there's overlay of other things. Like, there has to be. Because there's, like, the ghost dog and stuff like that.
I actually have information about that one.
Oh, great. Yeah, tell me.
So for The Nightmare Before Christmas, the fire, the fog, and the ghosts and the shadows are all overlay. With the fire, they actually had to figure out where the flame would be, and they had to take a picture of the live flame to put on every single frame.
Oh my goodness.
And figure out where those live flames went and have them there so those are live flames that you're looking at in those frames.
So it's like they film the regular scene and then they go separately and they film the fire, but they have to put the fire where they would overlay on top of the original set. That's insane.
And when Jack comes out of the well, that ooze is CG. Like, the water is CG.
There are definitely some CG elements.
So you can see the line, like, if you go frame by frame, you can see the line of where Jack is coming up and the water is, and it's a little bit too much of a straight line. But for the time, and especially, like, with everything that was going on, it was phenomenal.
And a
then
technical wonder.
For the ghosts, like, specifically the ones that were holding the presents, they filmed the presents with, wires, and then they would take each frame that the presents and the ghosts were in, and I can't remember what the technical term is, but they would have to outline the entire background and the presents and everything frame by frame, and then draw in the ghosts frame by frame, and then overlay the ghosts where they belonged.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's so much. After you've already spent, what is it, a week for a minute's worth of filming?
Yeah.
At least, if nothing went wrong.
Right, yeah.
If the wind blew something over or somebody messed it up, you can't just go in and edit it. You have to start over.
Stop motion animation is amazing, guys. It's amazing. So, at the time, it was the highest grossing stop motion animated film, grossing over... It's 50 million, but let me just say that in my notes, it's 50 jillion.
Well, For back then it was. It might as well have been. 50 million.
50 million domestic box office.
I wonder what that would be now. Let me check.
Oh, yeah, 1993 to now. That's an interesting. While you're doing that, I also looked into, I was just curious because, you know, I feel like, at least to my knowledge, because I'm looking at animation all the time, stop motion animation is more popular, is at least done more now than it used to. And not to say that it's done frequently, because it's definitely still not, but I guess being such a Leica fan, like I see a lot of stop motion animation, and I looked, at least at the list I saw, it's not completely like everything, but in the 2010s, like that decade of the 2010s, there were 49 stop motion animation films released worldwide. 1990 to 2000, so that decade of the 90s that we're in for Nightmare Before Christmas, there were only 14.
Yeah.
So look at that, 14 versus 49 now in a decade. Like, that's significant.
Well, and Nightmare Before Christmas was really pioneering these, like, pushing the edges of stop motion. There were techniques that they used that no other stop motion had used. So, like, it really is the kind of thing of, like, without, you know, Cinderella, we wouldn't have Moana, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, it's I think it's definitely a big stepping stone in making stop motion animation more popular. Not to say, like, honestly, stop motion animation in general, just as a side note, like, is animation, is part of animation history. Like, a lot of people would say, like, one of the first, or the first, like, animated films was done with puppets, like, they're, like, shadow puppets-esque, paper puppets, and it's basically like a stop motion. So, like, animation and stop motion have gone hand in hand for a long time, and nowadays, like, especially with computers, like, it's just so much cheaper and faster to make things CGI versus 2D, and definitely versus stop motion. But the studios like Leica, who continue to, like, push the boundaries of stop motion, is just so fascinating and so cool, and I love it.
Yeah, and it's the love of doing it in person. Like, with Coraline, they hand knit her sweaters.
Yeah.
Somebody hand knit those sweaters, and I can't tell you how impressed I am by that, but, like, it's the little details of love that go into it. And I wonder what all of the little things in Nightmare Before Christmas would have looked like if they did it CGI. Like, all of the love that goes into the backgrounds and the floor and the you know, the little monsters on the outskirts, and just so many little loving details that were crammed into this movie.
Yes. And it's like, yes, you could make these films in CGI, but it loses the magic of a stop motion film, and it truly is like, like, what medium you use makes a difference. Like, are you doing stop motion, 2D, what are you doing? And part of the appeal for me definitely is just the being in awe of this artistic, you know, creation that they've made.
That was definitely more of my viewpoint going into it this time, was like, oh my gosh, like, just knowing the technicalities of it, as well as just looking at it more from an artist's lens and view, and just how unique it is, and how and unique it was, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
I just I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely.
Music. So
did you find your side note, but did you find your stat that you were looking at?
Yes. It would have been 90 million 6,000. Yeah,
right.
Today.
So the 50 million that they made would have been 90 million-ish, which, to be fair, is still kind of low in general for a lot of films that are considered successful nowadays.
Nowadays, it's a different industry.
It's also a stop motion animation film. It's very, you know,
also it's
specific.
A cult classic because it gained popularity after its release, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but music. So Danny Elfman, when he was, I watched an interview with him, and he said that Tim Burton would come over and, like, as the script was being written, Tim Burton would come over and say, okay, here's here's the first couple of scenes, and just kind of describe it to him, and then he'd start making the music. Like, the script wasn't even done yet, so he made the music alongside when the script was being made. So I feel like the music and the script were knitted together, and I can tell. You know, in a lot of movies nowadays, Frozen, Moana, and now we're going to have a song, and in this, it is so fluid and fluidly made into the soundtrack and the storyline and everything. There isn't a beginning and end of the song. It's this swelling into a song and swelling out of a song, going straight into the next scene, and it's just gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it all is very cohesive.
Yeah.
Just reminds me, Emma and I had a conversation about Weathering with You that eventually will be an episode, and we talked about the same thing. Like, that's the same for that film. Like, the music was being written as the script was being written, and you can just really tell in stories like that it just meshes together beautifully. Music in earlier and earlier and earlier, especially when it is something being sung by a character, because it's such a story-driven part of the character. And it's very different than having just like a score for music, because that is almost always done after the fact, and they have to fit something to, to match a scene specifically. So,
but instead of doing that, the score is bloomed and blossomed out of the music and the songs and everything. And I think that's part of the reason why I like Journey so much. And I know you didn't enjoy Journey nearly as much as I did, but the music is timed out to the actions, and so they came up with a system of knitting together the actions and the music.
Yes.
Which I super appreciate.
Go listen to Brynn and I talk about Journey. We made an episode on Journey, the video game, a long time ago.
It was at least a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely
a while ago.
Early Fanimated days. Yeah. So take a listen to that. We had a lot of good things to say.
But yeah, I just love the music. And I love that Danny Elfman was Jack.
Yeah, because he sang.
He sang, and didn't he voice Jack? I'm fairly certain he voiced Jack, too.
I thought he just sang for Jack.
I could be wrong. I mean, if so, they found a voice actor who was on point.
I was wrong. Oh, wait. No. I'm right. I thought Jack Skellington. Oh, wait. Chris Sarandon is the voice of Jack Skellington. Danny Elfman did the singing voice.
I see that. So. All right. I was wrong. Whatever.
But Danny Elfman did a fantastic job with the music. Yeah.
And I think Danny Elfman's voice, like, you can tell that it's his and that he owns it, and that, like, he just does such an amazing job with it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, for sure. So in my research, I wanted to go down a rabbit hole about Henry Selick, because I was like, man, he's done such a good job. We need to like promote all the stuff he's done. But literally, it's like James and the Giant Peach and Coraline. And I was like, what is he doing now? And I got into this rabbit hole of like Disney attempting to be in stop motion animation and kind of failing at it. Because he got into a contract with Disney for stop motion stuff.
Yeah.
But nothing has come of it. Like, all of these rumored films that might have been canceled, or who knows what. But like, it's like he's stuck in limbo. Like, he's working for Disney on something and nothing's coming. Like, there is a film called Wendell and Wild, that is, rumored to be coming out sometime. Who knows? So we may yet get some more Henry Selick stuff.
Two demon brothers face off against a nun and a pair of goth teens.
Interesting. Okay.
Listeners, I don't know if you can see my face.
It's looking confused.
Concerned.
It's like Disney. Okay, Disney has a lot of money, so I say go for it. Try it out. See if you can do it. But
what's
also
stopping you?
But also, like, yeah, I'm just a little bit like, I don't know. I'm going to contradict myself if I say that, like, you know, Leica's doing it better. But also, like, because part of me is like, yeah, okay, I do want more stop motion animation. So if Disney's trying it out, that's fine. But also, part of me is just like, Leica knows what they're doing, and that's great. I'm just very happy with Leica, being a Leica fan, and I mean, maybe it's because I don't want it. Maybe it's that petty feeling of like, oh, you're just doing what they're doing, and it's like, no, actually. Disney, I just don't want Disney to own everything.
They might buy up Leica if they keep doing such a good job, though. Because they buy up everything.
They buy up everything.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But it looks like he did something with Bandai called Little Nightmares. It's 2 episodes long.
All right.
But it's put out by Bandai and DJ2 Entertainment. So, I'm guessing it was a toy selling stunt. But that's the most recent thing from him besides this Wendell Wild terrifying thing.
Who knows? We might end up loving it.
I
check back with us again in 3 years.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, granted, like, it takes a long time to produce in stop motion animated film. It's just a bummer, that Disney can't figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what happens. That's all.
I think that it's disappointing that they have so much money and they aren't giving it a chance. That's there's nothing to lose, you ginormous monopoly.
Like, release it on Disney Plus now. Like, you could just make something and release it on Disney Plus, and it's not even that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Like Owl House.
Oh my goodness, I'm so... Yeah, okay. Well, I have the Disney Now app because my parents do have cable.
Owl House isn't on Disney Plus. It's on Disney Now, but whatever.
It's on Disney Now. But I would love it to be on Disney Plus because it's actually easier to watch, and also more people would be able to watch it.
I wish that it were on Disney Plus.
It would be so much easier.
Yeah.
Anyway, we talk about Owl House in our next week's What You Watchin', so stay tuned.
Yeah.
Anyways, to wrap up with Nightmare Before Christmas, very important question for you. Can you watch Nightmare Before Christmas during Christmas time?
Yes.
Is this a Christmas movie?
Of course it is. The thing is,
why though? But it's all about Halloween.
No.
Too. Like, it's
mostly
scary.
Both and. Here's the thing. I have other issues about Christmas. Like the fact that your Christmas trees are all pagan, have pagan roots to them. Fun fact. So, like, I think that the idea of Christmas has become this, like, very lofty, Christmas tree, and I'm like, okay, but, like, do you know where that Christmas tree comes from?
It's definitely, like, especially in the US and everywhere, I'm sure, like, become more and more consumeristic and less about, the birth of Jesus Christ.
Friday. But besides all of that conversation about why we think that Bethlehem in December would have been safe in a barn for Jesus, which it wouldn't. He would have been born in spring. No, really. The reason why it's in December is because it falls on, like, the solstice, or around the solstice, and when Christians went to the pagan religions and they're like, "Oh, you celebrate something right now? We have a celebration for you, the birth of our God, of Jesus Christ," and they're like, cool.
So
can we keep our trees?
Right, so it's more like, let's integrate Christian religion into the other religions that are already existent.
Same reason why Easter has eggs. Eggs eggs are a sign of fertility. So eggs and bunnies are from the pagan tradition of the equinox, the spring equinox.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Learning all sorts of things they don't teach you in Bible school.
Like, and the same things happen with the Celts. The reason why the Celtic cross is still around because the Celtic cross is originally a sign of the sun god because it has both axes, the horizontal and vertical axis, and then it has the sun behind it. And Christians came in and they're like, excuse me, you worship this this god now, and here's the cross. And they're like, we can keep this though, right? It's a cross. And they're like, yeah, it's a cross. And they're like, yeah, absolutely a cross. It's fine. It has nothing to do with a pagan
Good. We
god
don't
of
we don't
sun.
have to do a full rebranding.
Right, exactly. So, anyways, back off of that rabbit trail. But the thing is, I think that this is like a really great Christmas story of somebody who finds joy in Christmas, because you see Jack's joy and you see his longing of this of Christmastown and this appreciation of Christmastown that really sparks it off. It's what he does with it that's the problem.
Here's my counter argument, because I kind of agree with you, but I just want to counter just for entertainment's sake. Because here's the deliberation. Even though it's talking about Christmas, content, the atmosphere is still spooky. Like it's not like you're watching, like something can be set in a Christmas time, but not be a Christmas movie. Like what's that action movie?
Die Hard? I was just about to mention Die Hard, the ultimate
Die
Christmas
Hard
movie.
Christmas movie?
Yes it is. It's about loving your loved ones and your family and making new friends who help you get through hard times. And it's the ultimate Christmas movie.
All right. If you're listening to this right now, go to our Instagram. If you're listening to it, I should say in the week prior, or the day, let's just say the day that this comes out.
Go
vote on real things, but also vote on our Instagram page at Fanimated Podcast and tell me in our stories. I'll just make a little poll. Is The Nightmare Before Christmas a Christmas movie or not? I want to know your thought. Thank you again to all the patrons who voted for The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah,
and
I love doing this.
We're doing another poll every single month. There's a new poll, so if you want to be a part of telling us what we should be talking about, you got to be a patron on patreon.com/Fanimated. It's a blast. I don't know. Would you say it's a fun time over there?
I love it. I love we have a little bit of conversation on there. A lot of the content is just wonderful. You get to hear like the stuff that got taken out of the episode, which is always fun.
You get all the bonus content.
Yeah. So, and the sticker.
And stickers.
I love my sticker.
And vlogs. And I'm starting to release the schedule for the month, which I hadn't before because it changed so much.
Yeah.
Like it changes a lot. But I'm trying to be more like set in like what is coming up so that I can let the patrons know these are the things that are coming up. So this is what you should be watching.
Well, and also like if it changes again, it's a pandemic.
It's okay.
It's okay. But also it's nice to have a little heads up so that you can know what to watch.
Exactly. So there you go. There's our little, oops, excuse me, that was loud. There's your little ad. All right. Thank you so much, Brynn, for joining me. We'll be back at you guys with a What You Watching next week.
Yes, ma'am. And as always, Black Lives Matter.
Stay tuned.
And stay animated.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you can join the Fanimated crew and vote for upcoming episode topics like this one by going to patreon.com/Fanimated. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Fanimated Podcast to stay up to date with all things animated, and don't forget to leave a rating and review telling us what you'd like us to watch next. The music is provided by Purple Planet Music and the art is done by myself. You can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. That's KANDERDRAW. Thank you so much to Brynn for geeking out with me today, and we'll be back next week with another What You're Watching episode. So in the meantime, stay tuned, stay animated, and have a very merry Halloween. All right. Cast your votes, people, at Fanimated Podcast on Instagram. Can you watch Nightmare Before Christmas on Christmas?
Or should, I suppose.
Or should you?
Eh.
We'll word it.
Is it a Christmas movie as well as a Halloween movie?
See, here's the thing. You know for sure it's a Halloween movie. You know, why is there debate on whether or not it's a Christmas movie? Because it doesn't feel like a Christmas movie. It doesn't, you know what I mean?